Now, naturally, people want to know what Brexit will mean.
Brexit means Brexit. Brexit means Brexit. Brexit means Brexit.
Brexit means Brexit.
Brexit means Brexit.
Brexit means Brexit. Brexit means Brexit.
Brexit means Brexit.
Brexit means Brexit.
Brexit means Brexit. Brexit means Brexit. Brexit means Brexit. Brexit means Brexit.
So is everyone clear about what Brexit means then?
Breakfast.
Hey guys, I'm Talia Tiger Zeckler and this is my new podcast, Brexit Broken Down. As an 18-year-old student, I understand the struggles of trying to come to terms with what is going on with this country, especially with Brexit. It's just so confusing. There are politicians left, right and centre making statements about this country and their beliefs. Theresa May standing down as Prime Minister, Boris Johnson wants to take her place. There's just so much going on. To make things even more confusing, phrases like hard Brexit, soft Brexit and the single market are getting thrown about. It's a completely different language. Like, what does this all mean? Well, luckily for you, I'll be explaining what it all means and taking us right back to where it all started and why it all happened in the first place on the first ever episode of Brexit Broken Down. The EU, which stands for European Union, is a political and economic partnership with 28 member countries. Think of the EU like a club. Countries pay to become and stay a member in return for special benefits, provided that the countries follow the rules. Many of the countries that join see the benefits in becoming a member. For example, the EU rights for any citizen in a member state. There are 4 main EU citizen rights. The first is the freedom to move and live in any EU countries. So, if you wanted to live in France, you could. It would be that simple. The second is you would be allowed to have the right to vote in the European Parliament elections, deciding on who represents your country in the EU Parliament. They decide on the laws that get applied to all countries in the EU. If you're on holiday in any country outside of the EU and your country doesn't have an embassy there, you have the right to go to the embassy of any other EU country. Finally, you'll have the right to talk to the European Ombudsman. They deal with complaints and helping people with administration issues. Think of it as the customer services for the European Union. The EU citizen rights would make many countries wonder whether it would be a good idea if they should join too. Well, back in 1973, the United Kingdom decided to join the EU alongside Denmark and Ireland, who joined them that same year. The European Union was now made up of 9 strong countries that worked together in making their countries a better place. Fast forward to January 2013, David Cameron stated that if his party, the Conservatives, were to win the general election, then he would deliver a referendum on the UK's membership in the EU.
We will give the British people a referendum with a very simple in or out choice: to stay in the European Union on these new terms or to come out altogether.
He knew that that was what the people wanted and would win over their votes. However, Cameron was confident that the UK would vote Remain. If you're wondering what a referendum is, it's a vote that's open to the public where over 18s can vote on a decision on whether they agree or disagree. It's a form of direct democracy that relies on the outcome of the votes by members of the public. David Cameron explained that this would be a simple referendum of a Leave or Remain vote. If we remained, he promised that he'd create new terms with the European Union. Or if Leave was voted, we as a country would just make a quick exit. The irony.
It will be an in-out referendum.
2 new cross-party campaigns were formed, the Leave campaign and the Remain campaign. 2 sides campaigning on their beliefs, trying to persuade a UK citizen to vote for what they believe is right. Should we remain in the EU or not? As the campaigns began, both became very passionate about one main point that they believed would be in the highest interest for the United Kingdom. The Remain campaign seemed to be very concerned about the economical issues that would affect the UK if Brexit was to happen, meaning that taxes would be raised and spending would be cut towards public services.
There is nothing more positive than having a stronger economy supporting jobs and opportunities, and that's why I believe you should vote Remain.
Instead of the Remain campaign focusing on the positives of the UK's membership within the EU, they were more driven to educate the people on what the effects would be on the country post-vote. This could be seen as to why Remain lost a referendum. They simply focused more on the bad than the good. On the other hand, Leave had a more powerful approach to their campaign by repeating the phrase, "Take back control."
You can make this happen. This might be our last chance. So let's take back control. Vote Leave on the 23rd of June.
The Leave campaign believed that if the United Kingdom was to leave the European Union, then as a country, we would have more control over our borders, budgets and judiciary, meaning who and how the laws for the country are made. Many people thought that Vote Leave approached their campaign in a discreet and subtle form of racism. By enforcing the phrase, citizens believed that if they voted to leave the EU, they would have more control over who can leave and enter the country. By regulating the borders, UK citizens believe that this will reduce the amount of migrants entering the country.
This means that the UK has voted to leave the European Union.
On the 23rd of June 2016, the results were in. It was official. The United Kingdom had voted to leave the European Union. Leave won with 51.9% of the votes. Less than 24 hours after the results had been revealed, David Cameron announced that he would be standing down as Prime Minister. The country wasn't happy at all, as this was the time we needed our Prime Minister the most. Only 2 days after he announced his resignation, he attended his final Brussels summit, and that doesn't mean he's about to climb a mountain. Not only is it the capital of Belgium, Brussels is also the heart of the European Union. The European Commission Office, the European Council, and the European Parliament all live in Brussels. Back to when David Cameron attended his final Brussels summit, he came away with 2 main points. The first being, no negotiation without notification. This basically meant that no official talks between the EU and the UK would take place regarding their 2-year exit process plan until Article 50 was written up and accepted. The second point was about keeping the EU's 4 fundamental freedoms. The first of the 4 is goods. This is the free movement of foods and items that get traded between EU member countries without having to go through detailed customs checks. Next is capital, which means you can make payments freely and easily with member states, making it as stress-free as possible if you need to transfer someone money in the EU. The third is services. This means that if a business offers a service to the United Kingdom, they can also offer it in any other EU member countries. And finally, people. This simply gives all EU member country citizens the right to move between any other EU countries freely. After these 2 points were given to David Cameron, the country was in uproar and full of confusion as to what would happen next. Since the majority of voters wanted to take back control of the UK's borders, that meant that we wanted full control over the people fundament. However, it wasn't going to be that easy. If we wanted to take back control of the people fundamental, it would mean that we would be denied the other 3 luxury fundamentals for the country. By losing out on the other 3 fundamentals would mean that we would have to sacrifice our access to the free market, which is also referred to as the single market. The single market is a concept that the European Union brought together which allows EU countries to trade goods between each other easily. This meaning that there are less checks and regulations when produce passes countries' borders. So, if we didn't have access to the free market, all imports to the UK would have to be highly checked to ensure that they are all of standard and not containing anything illegal. As well as that, we would also be jeopardising small businesses that provide services in EU countries.
What benefits are there for small business owners of remaining in the EU, as I can't see any?
If these companies make most of their income from EU countries, their income would get cut off too, as it would be harder for them to put their services in other EU countries. In short, if the UK wanted to take back control over the borders, it would completely put our access to the free market at risk. So, you've probably gained more of an idea as to how complex Brexit is on the United Kingdom. If you're interested in learning more about it, then make sure to listen to the second episode of Brexit Broken Down. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you soon.